As a little kid, I could never get into classic Mega Man. 7-year-old me thought these games were bullshit, and besides Mega Man 2, I couldn't finish any of them, so I dropped them to go play games of a higher art form. But when I was a teenager, I really enjoyed playing Mega Man and Smash, and thought I'd give them another go. And I got to the Yellow Devil boss fight and said, fuck that, I'ma go play some games of a higher art form again. But fortunately, I had the absolute privilege of being a subscriber to the sexiest beast on YouTube. Some call me Johnny, who is just the greatest guy ever and was so good at making me interested in games I'd play anything he said was good. So when I watched his Mega Man X reviews, his passion for the first game made me want to go and give it a go, even though I could never get into the classics. So I picked up the first X collection, and god damn, these games, at least the first 4, were so fucking good. And I was shocked I liked them so much, considering I couldn't get into the classics, but the speed, the energy, and the lack of invisible blocks just got me so hooked that I went on to stomach through the classic Mega Man games, and even played not only all the main X games, but even all the mainline games of every other Mega Man series. And while I don't know if X is still my favourite Mega Man series, it's definitely top 3, and I replay most of them every year. And this year I decided to replay all the main X games, even the ones I didn't like, so I thought, why not rank them? So grab your dinner and kick back as I ramble through the 8 mainline X games, from the highest peaks to the lowest pieces of shit. Let's get into it. Why the fuck was this greenlit, Capcom? So here at number 8 we have Mega Man X7, the second game made past what was originally meant to be the finale of the X series, X5. And while I think you can definitely see how X6 was unplanned when you play it, I still think it feels like a natural sequel to X5. This game, on the other hand, to start off with, the biggest change you've probably noticed if you've ever seen an X game is that it's in 3D, and that's not the inherent issue. The Mega Man Legends games, which came out before this one, prove that Mega Man can 110% work in 3D. However, this game's levels' 3D segments are so open and empty, there's just a lot of space to traverse, not helped by how slow all 3 of the characters move! How do we go from this to this? And I understand the devs wanted to try something new with this franchise. You can only make similar feeling and structured games for so long, and I know 3D is hard, but this game is so ugly! The PS1 Mega Man X titles are some of the most gorgeous games ever made, in my opinion. So going from those to these expressionless and dull 3D models and environments that look straight out of a kid's dollhouse is so jarring and makes me think they really had no center idea for this game. And that feeling was not helped at all with this game's story. They had absolutely no ideas left and started throwing shit at the wall hoping it would stick. Like, they introduced a new playable character for the first time since X3, Axel, and while he did grow on me in the next game, dear god is he annoying as fuck here, and it's in no small part to his awful voice acting, and please, no shade to his voice actress, Lene Hart. Her performance here, unfortunately, makes an already meh character near insufferable.
Okay, maybe what I did was wrong, but like, we were a perfect team, don't you think? When we kicked that big dude's butt, I thought, yeah, we would make a great combo.
Not to mention he feels totally shoehorned in, being a part of a new generation of Reploids that have the power to shapeshift into other Reploids that have never been brought up before in any of the past 6 games. Just like the organization he used to work for, Red Alert, a vigilante group of maverick hunters led by our main villain of the game, Red, Axel's pseudo-father figure. And the game doesn't really do much with that either, making the whole storyline feeling even more unpolished. And that ability Axel has to turn into different Reploids in actual gameplay, there's like 5 heads he can turn into, and they're all so unbelievably useless to become. I really didn't even see the point of even using it. Now, Zero is playable off the bat as well, and maybe it's just how slow the game feels, but he feels so weak here to me. By the time you dash over to most enemies with guns, it probably shot him down to half health. And finally, X is also playable after unlocking him. Yeah, you have to unlock X in Mega Man X. And it has to be for the dumbest reasons ever, as he figures the only way to stop robots from killing humans and each other is to not do anything. But it's to stop fighting, so you don't get to play as him until you either save 64 of these idiots in the stages, or beat the first 8 bosses. And consider when you beat the first 8 bosses, you're pretty much finished the game. You pretty much have to go out of your way to unlock him. And you probably should, because he's got armor upgrades, easily does the best damage out of the 3, and just feels the most balanced for this game's combat. And dear god, the bosses in this game, either total snooze fest from how long they take to kill, or so annoyingly badly designed that I didn't like any of these 8 kids. And the soundtrack is honestly really forgettable, which is so unusual for the X series, or, you know, maybe I just couldn't hear it from this game's horrible sound mixing.
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn! Burn to the ground! Burn to burn!
Whoever recorded that sound effect can go fuck themselves. Anytime you hit this boss Flame Higher Nerd, he shouts that shit ear-bleedingly loud, and that's already on top of the other 64 loud sound effects that are at play. And someone might just say, oh, just turn them down, which is something I never had to do with any of the other ones. And combine all of that with some of the worst final levels and boss fights I've played in the video game, and you have easily got one of the worst games of all time in my opinion. This is easily in my top 5 bottom of the barrel. It's that bad, and I'm really happy to say none of the other entries on this list ever had the same bottom of the barrel quality this game had. At number 7, we've got the game I felt the most split down the middle on ever, Mega Man X5. I still genuinely can't tell if I like it or not, and that extends to every aspect of the game, from the levels to the story, to even how the way you get endings has things I like about it and really don't like about it. For example, the story is okay, it has some good aspects, like the earth-ending scale of Sigma's plan to crash a space station into the planet wiping out all life, and the really cool lore it confirms for the Mega Man franchise, and even the ending and concept is really good, even if the next 3 games kinda render its ending a bit mute. However, the way the story has X and Zero's fated fight that's been built up for the last 3 games was so dumb. Basically, the two protagonists of the X series, X and Zero, were created by the original Mega Man's creator and the OG villain of the classic games, respectively 100 years ago. And when a virus created by the main antagonist Sigma, called the Zero virus, is being unleashed onto the planet, it affects all the planet's robots, turning them from good robots into rebellious mavericks, which are a type of robot that have turned rogue on their human creators. However, the virus actually powers up Zero instead of harming him, and this obviously causes strife for X and our main group. But instead of suggesting to Zero immediately that he should just stay at the base and get looked at, all of our main crew, including X, only decides to bring this up to Zero until they are right outside of the final boss room. Oh, but it gets dumber. As Zero feels so disrespected at being suspected of turning Maverick, he takes the mature option and just tries to fucking kill X, leading to the dumbest fight ever that's only held up by its banger boss theme. Now, there is an alternative way this fight comes to happen, where Zero just does flat out turn Maverick, but I didn't get to see that the first time, as RNG determined that I got the ending I just spoke about. Oh yeah, in X5 there's multiple endings, and while you can do certain things to push you towards an ending, it's ultimately determined if you beat the first 4 bosses in a certain amount of attempts at the stages, as when you beat them you get parts for a space shuttle to help stop the space colony from crashing into the planet. But even if you don't get any parts, it can just be still prevented in what has to be the dumbest decision I've seen in regards to how to get endings in a game ever. Also not helped by how fucking bad some of the game's levels are, and it really is only some. Like Crescent Grizzly and the Pegasus stages are pretty fun and have some good bosses, but when you get all the Sigma levels in this game, which genuinely push me to jumping off a building, or even worse than them, Idle Wheels, which is nothing but horrible scrolling sections filled with insta-kill objects that ends with a boss fight that can suck my dick and balls. And imagine my horror as a guy who quit Mega Man 1 over the Yellow Devil to find and have to fight his dickhead cousin, the Black Devil, who's somehow even worse. And coming off X4, which handled having 2 different campaigns amazingly, with both characters being equally as fun to use the whole game, to then go to this game which feels like you should not choose Zero at all, as these levels were not only not designed for him, but also give him no instant upgrades like X, who gets a full suit of armor in the opening level that makes the stages more manageable, really sucks. As I personally vibe with Zero's style more, but no, this game clearly doesn't want me to have fun. You know, as I wrote this segment, I think I talked myself into finally accepting, yeah, I don't like this game. For every good aspect it has like 3 things that I really don't like. Not the worst game ever by any means, like X7, god no, I'd play this game 100 times over before that piece of shit. But next time I do an X series replay through, this will be an easy skip. At number 6 we've got Exiad, and if X5 was the game I felt the most mixed on throughout my whole life, then Exiad is the biggest game I've wanted to like, but I just can't. And don't get me wrong, this is a perfectly fine game, and the upgrade from X7 is massive in everything from feeling to 3D models to levels, and dear god, especially the voice acting.
Roger, I'm on my way. Axel, I'm counting on you to clean up here.
Be kidding! Axel has nothing to do with us! We won't fight the likes of you for his sake!
But even though it's an upgrade, it doesn't mean I like it much either. However, one thing I did really enjoy about the game is its story. Despite it ending with an unresolved cliffhanger, it's got one of the best individual plots in the series. For starters, Sigma Balls isn't the twist villain, as he's the one who gets backstabbed for once, which I think makes for a great ending for his character, after betraying the dickheads for 6 straight games to show up as its main big bad. And Lucimian, who takes out Sigma in the end, is pretty alright as a villain as well. Being a part of the next generation of Reploids, he's supposed to represent a hopeful future for X and Zero, kinda like how Axel does. But it turns out him and the rest of the new generation Reploids have chips in them carrying the data of Sigma, and besides Axel, all of them can be corrupted by it. So even after finally killing Sigma for good, they got a whole army of him to essentially clean up. And as I said before, the cliffhanger ending of Axel being shot is never resolved, but the final speech Zero gives about how him and X just have to keep going for the sake of everyone is a really nice way to close out the X series. Also helped by how well voice acted it is, and I gotta keep bringing this up because this series voice acting has really stunk up until this point.
What am I fighting for?
I also like Axel in this game a lot more compared to X7. Much better voice acting on top of a more interesting story really helped flesh him out for me. Jimmy dies after 2 games, but hey, at least he went out on a good note. But unfortunately, I don't really like much else about this game, and some are definitely personal gameplay choices I just don't vibe with. Like, I really don't like the upgrade system in X yet. I loved how the first 6 games handled X's upgrades with the armor and heart tanks, but the currency based system on top of having to find the chips for upgrades just don't vibe with me nowhere near as much. Plus, while the game does look much better than X7, I still vastly prefer the sprite work of the older X games, and I just think it helps with the fast paced feeling the X series goes for, and that's another thing. I just don't vibe with the feel of X yet, man. Maybe I'm not good with change, but I swear this game feels so much slower than the other ones.
Besides this one.
Like, Zero's attacks just feel slower, your dash feels slower, the jump feels slower, and my brain is slowing down trying to find something to talk about with this game. It all just feels snail's paced. Lastly, I just don't really like the stage design of this game. All the environments I found really unmemorable on top of some crap stage gimmicks, which just left me uninterested the whole time. And it's a shame, as I really think they tried their damnedest to make up for X7 with all the fun callbacks to the series and the much higher production values, but it just falls short for me. At number 5 we got X-Free, which is the first game on the list that I really like. It's just got one massive issue, but more on that later. To start off with a good, I love the upgrades in this game. This armor set has to be my favourite armor X has ever had, giving him the insane movability and makes him feel so broken. Plus they really expanded on the mechs you could find in the first 2 games, as way more of the levels actually have them in it, alongside the mechs having their own upgrade chips, which you can utilise at different mech stations in the levels. And while they still aren't essential, I found them a lot more useful. And speaking of levels, I found the main 8 levels from a design perspective really fun, and I thought they all had fair challenges and the pixel art going on in them is beautiful. As for the boss fights, while they have cool designs and fun enough movesets to fight, they are dragged down by the massive issue I brought up at the start of this section, and that's how much fucking damage everything does to you in this game. An enemy bumping into you does the equivalent of a rhino sitting on you. Like, look at how much damage a basic enemy does to your health. So if these enemies are doing this much, I think you can all only guess how annoying some bosses can be with the damage they be doing in this game, especially at the start without any upgrades. And while Frost Buffalo is an easy enough starting boss, my first couple playthroughs of this game I felt kind of forced into doing the normal boss weakness order starting with him, something I hadn't felt with any other X game at this point. So if anyone who hasn't tried these games yet is planning on picking up the X collection, it offers Rookie Hunter mode, which is essentially a super easy mode where all the damage of the enemies is lowered, and I wouldn't even judge you for using it on X-Ray, as Rookie Hunter mode makes the damage in this game normal. To end on a positive, I think the way X-Ray does optional side bosses is a lot better than X2, as they're not only worked into the flow of the game better, I just think they're much more fun bosses. But overall, if you can get past X-Ray's damage, there's a lot of fun to be had here. At number 4 we got Mega Man X2, which if I'm being honest would be number 1 in my top 5 favourite games of X2 in the title, so it hits some highs. But if I were to describe X2, it's kinda like Temple of Doom to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Great, but doesn't do anything better than the original. Well, maybe besides story, as well I think X1 introduced a lot more to the franchise, it really is beat it, kids, kill Ligma balls, whereas this one has a bit more oomph to it, I guess, giving cutscenes, a bit more production to flesh out our main villains, the X-Hunters, and their plans to rebuild Zero after his death in the first game, though you get a lot more explained to you than beat up the villain from Alvin and the Chipmunks. Plus, this game has a lot of good levels, and they do feel like they have a higher production value in a sense than the first one. Well, in essence, since this bit in Overdrive Ostrich stage really just is one straight line, but it has a lot of production to it, so it's kinda cool. And I love climbing higher up Flame Stag's volcano, or making it through Wheelgator's airship, plus all the bosses were really fun. Well, besides this dickhead. I felt they were all fair and pretty beatable without their weaknesses. I also liked most of X's new upgrades, mainly the leg one because an aerial dash is amazing and made platforming challenges a breeze. But while I think all of this is great, in X1 all of these aspects are amazing, so it still kind of feels outclassed and overshadowed a bit by the original. Plus I think X1's pacing is much better, as X2 introduced optional bosses into the series with the X-Hunters, and yeah,
they are optional and are decently fun but kinda challenging fights, but my issue with them is that you have to beat these bosses before progressing the game too much. For example, if you beat 3 Mavericks before you beat 1 X Hunter, you just can't kill that 1 X Hunter, and I think that's a load of shit. And considering how weak you feel at the start of an X game, it means after I beat the first boss, I have to rush to beat one of the Maverick Hunters before they disappear, and that's not fun. It also kinda messes with how I tackle the game, which is what made X1 infinitely replayable. So overall, love X2, but some things just drag it down a little for me. I imagine any hardcore Mega Man X fans watching to this point of the video gotta be rapidly approaching my house with a variety of weapons, but hey, what can you do? At number 3, I got Mega Man X6, and listen, I know this game ain't perfect, and I have gripes with it too, but I would be lying if I said I don't have a ton of fun with this one. To any people who just clicked on the video for the crack but don't really with Mega Man, hi, thanks for clicking, you're so cool, but you should probably know besides Mega Man X7, this game's kind of the most universally hated X game. And I can see it. You see, the game was not even originally planned to be made, as the Mega Man series main director, KJ Inafune, wanted X5 to be the finale for the X series, and wanted to move on to the next Mega Man series, Mega Man Zero. But Capcom wants money, so the game was greenlit without KJ Inafune even originally knowing, and he had to rewrite Zero's plot a little because of it. So as you can tell, it had a rushed development, and I don't bring this up to defend its flaws, more so to paint a picture of why it had them. For example, this game's first release had a notoriously bad English translation. Zero, I thought you were cooked, bro. Nah, dog, I hid myself, repair myself. Why are you messing with my DNA? I make the strongest robot. And I guess that's a problem, but I don't know, I thought it was really charming when I first played it. Give me a lot of laughs, plus if you look past the bad grammar, I think this game got the best plot in the whole X series, alongside the best main villain. I'll stand, Gate is an interesting main villain, whose ties to one of X's main support crew, Aelia, not only adds a lot to him, but made me more interested in her, as they were both scientists working together on making a next generation of Reploids inspired by X and Zero. But due to a lot of bullying from peers who also destroyed his creations and research, he stormed out looking to make a utopia of robots like X and Zero, which I don't think is a bad idea considering these two are carrying the human race on their backs at this point. But due to the Zero virus infecting Gate on that symbiote from Spider-Man type shit, his whole demeanor is uplifted to unstable heights, and he tries to make his world in a more forceful way, and I just found that really interesting. And because all the Maverick bosses in this game were once a part of Gate's old scientist team, Alien knows all of them personally, and in a series first, you actually get to know them all a little bit better, and she tells you little stories about them after you defeat them. Kinda making me feel a bit bad here, bitch, you couldn't mention this before? To be fair on her though, she did grow a lot on me in this game, especially coming off X5 where she was just very there for me, like all the new idiots introduced in that game. And you can even unlock a little cutscene when you collect enough of this game's currency, where she opens up more about her and Gate's past, and it's a great little extra scene, and I encourage anyone who's played this game before and hasn't seen it to maybe go back and try and unlock it. So if you couldn't tell from my ramblings, I love this game's story. While bringing Sigma back last minute is kinda dumb, I think this whole story expanded the scope and ideology debate of nature versus evolution that's been in the background of the entire X series wonderfully. And on top of a great story, I just found most levels really fun to play. Now, not all of them are knockouts. Blaze Heat Next stage has an annoying ass mini boss that was not designed for X in the slightest, and the secret lab level can die in a fire. But I really enjoyed all the other ones, especially Sheldon, as I found the reflector level gimmick really fun to mess with. Plus all the other bosses were really fun, and I even enjoyed all the abilities you got from them. And the game even reintroduced bonus hidden bosses, and I really enjoyed these in X3, so I was happy to see them have another crack at it. And while unlocking Zero is kinda dumb, fighting Shadow Zero and getting to hear that boss theme again is equal to sex. And this other hidden boss, High Max, you can fight was also really fun, and came with a goated boss theme too. Now a common complaint with the game is that you can't damage High Max with your normal attacks, so you're cooked if you accidentally stumble into his boss room before beating one boss, but I don't know, I don't really agree, as the game lets you know at the start you can't damage him normally, plus even if you don't know and somehow stumble into his hidden boss room, you'll die and have to do, what, 5 minutes again? Come on, it ain't that bad. Now what I won't defend is the nightmare effect system. Essentially due to the Zero virus plaguing the planet, some stages will randomly have nightmare effects that only go away when you beat a different stage, and they make the levels obnoxiously hard. And I fully agree with people on this one, this gimmick sucks. Like giving Rainy Turtleoids level acid rain that turns a fun level into something really obnoxious is complete shit. And I don't get the fun on why you would do this gimmick either, Capcom, especially with this game's rushed development, but I usually just ignore whatever stage it's in and just pick one of the others, as this game ain't too hard and I never felt the need to do a specific order, so it didn't bother me too much. So overall, X6 may not be perfect, but damn it, the good shit about this game is great, and I really implore every X fan watching this to give this game another go. Unlock Zero. Listen to what Aelia has to say, listen to the OST more, I don't know, just really give this game a second look. And if you still don't like it, well, fuck. For the Number 2 we got Mega Man X1, and I know I just went on a whole ramble of defending X6, but I'd just like to add for context of how much I fucking love this game. X6, I give it like an 8 out of 10, and it would be somewhere in my top 100 favorite games. This would be in my top 20, and I give it a 10 out of 10. It's that good. And God, I don't even know where to begin with this game, and it's because it's one of the only 2 games I'd consider perfect. That's right, I have literally zero, God, forget problems, I don't even have any nitpicks. For starters, what a fucking perfect evolution from the classic series, and I don't mean it as in, oh, this game is so much better, which it is, but it's how it evolves the sort of feel-good cartoony, beat the bad guy of the week, slow run and gun shooter, and it transforms from that into a style feeling straight out of a grungy 90s anime with a villain who actually feels like he's going to destroy the world if we feel. On top of how insanely fast-paced they made the Mega Man gameplay formula is kinda unreal, and kinda like how these games take place 100 years after the classics and actual lore, the change up of literally everything adds even more to its new feel. And thanks to some really clever design decisions by the dev team, it's really easy to transition from classic to X. For example, the first level doesn't really ask much of you in any of the game's new mechanics like jumping up walls and such, and you don't even start off with X's iconic dash. However, it's the one body upgrade you can't possibly miss, as you need to grab it in order to progress through Chill Penguin's level. And speaking of Chill Penguin, he's the first boss you're most likely going to do, as he's by far the easiest, so you'll probably end up getting the dash quickly anyway, but it was designed like this, confirmed by the dev team, to let older Mega Man fans ease into it easier, and that's a design decision I absolutely adore. Another thing I can't say enough good about is how consistent the stages and bosses are. Easily the most consistent 2D platformer I've played in this regard, as everything from the intro stage to the final Sigma level was fun as hell, and it never dragged the pacing down. And there's another thing, the pacing of this game is unreal. From the second you boot up the game, it never slows down, and I don't mean that there's just not a million cutscenes or whatever, I mean every level is just paced so fucking expertly, as all these levels never have you stopping and going on, say, invisible block challenges, and it's so good at it. And most of the time I just said, ah fuck, I'll dash through the enemies and tank through the damage, as you can really get away with it in this game. But back on the topic of the levels, this game does this really amazing idea that really surprised me very little other Mega Man games attempt, where if you beat a certain boss, due to the death of that boss, it impacts another level. For example, if you defeat Chill Penguin, it freezes over the fire and heat off the Mammoth stage, making it much easier to get the heart upgrade. Or if you defeat Storm Eagle, his ship crashes in the Spark Mandrels level, turning the power off and nullifying a lot of the electrical obstacles. And I love things like that, as it encourages playing the game differently and trying new routes to the point where I think everyone will have at least a slightly different playthrough of this game. And to top it off, this game not only has the best boss weapons in the X series, the entire Mega Man franchise, dog, as I actually use them outside of spanking a boss of his weakness. Like Storm Eagles is this good at screen nuke, the homing missiles are super helpful, Spark Mandrels is an awesome rapid fire. I just found little uses for all of them throughout the whole game. And the soundtrack, oh my god, the soundtrack is peak! Oh my god, this game is so perfect, you guys. And again, if you haven't played a Mega Man X game and just tapped on this video for the crack, well, once again, hi! Thanks for watching this far, but do yourself a favor and play Mega Man X1. It is absolutely worth your time and I cannot recommend it enough. Which is kinda crazy, because it's not even the best X game. And for my number 1 spot, we have my favorite 2D side-scroller of all time, Mega Man X4. And you might be watching this saying, you said the first game was perfect, how could this be better? And you know what? Very smart question, random viewer. Because I could nitpick stuff of X4, like Jet Stingray's level being one big ride on a bike that isn't that fun, or how I didn't find any of X's boss weapons to be all that fun to use. However, just because something's perfect, doesn't mean something else can't be better than it.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
For starters, I love the flow and the fast-paced gameplay of X4 even more than the originals, as I just felt its levels complemented the movement even better. And the first game is already perfect, mind you, so that should really tell you how much I love this game's. And the boss fights are at their best in this one as well. And don't get me wrong, I love X1s, but I just found the slightly more challenging bosses of X4 to be more thrilling, especially Magma Dragoon, whose Street Fighter-ass moveset is so fun to battle against. And while this might be an unfair point towards X4, god damn is the 32-bit art style gorgeous. The colors, the animations, and the sound effects are all perfect. and I really respect Capcom for sticking to their guns and making a gorgeous pixel art side-scroller in the first generation to push everything to be in 3D.
If only they stuck to it on this one.
And I know comparing the graphics of a SNES 2D side-scroller to a PS1 side-scroller is a bit unfair, but they really did perfect the X series visually here. But the biggest reason I can pinpoint for why I prefer X4, the thing that gives it just that slight edge over the first one, it's the boy Zero. Because voice acting aside, giving the game 2 different playable characters to tackle the entire campaign with fucking rules. As unlike X5 and even my beloved X6, which I felt were better designed for one character over the other, this game feels perfect for both, and you could easily enjoy the game no matter who you pick. Now, I slightly prefer Zero, as his in-your-face melee combos appeal more to me, but in my 120 different replay-throughs of this game, I've picked X a good chunk of them, as he's equally as fun to choose too. And the replayability it adds to this game is unreal. This has to be my most replayed game of all time. I remember this one time I brought my mum to the hospital for an appointment, and it was during COVID time, so everything was taking a while and I had to wait outside in my own little bubble. So I was waiting about an hour and a half, so I just whipped out my Switch, and by the time my mum came out I was sitting on the credits for it. It's that easy to replay for me. Not to mention the game's helped by a fantastic soundtrack and some of the best final challenges in the entire series. And I'll be honest, kinda love these anime cutscenes.
I'm disappointed in you, Colonel.
And I know I give X7 shit for its voice acting, but you gotta hear it constantly in that game, compared to here where you get it in small increments, which adds to its charm. Plus it's unironically better voice acting.
Maybe what I did was wrong.
Overall, I adore this game. Fuck, probably gonna replay it straight after writing this part of the video. I've put myself in such a mood for it. It takes the perfection that is X1 and adds to it, and while it has its own little gripes, the outstanding stuff is so out of this world it can't help but be my favourite Mega Man X game of all time. Thanks for watching. Sorry there's been a little delay in this video and the second Ace Attorney part, as some family stuff really needed my attention for a while and it was hard to find the time to write and record. But I'm back to working on videos daily and my goal is to get Ace Attorney out before the end of the year. Hopefully. But thanks for watching, have a great day, and I'll see all you beautiful people in the next one. Take care.